Be with us, O God. Open our hearts and our minds to your word. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. The prophet Isaiah, in the 56th chapter, the 7th verse, says these words about foreigners who want to come to the temple of the Lord. These I will bring to my holy mountain and give them joy in my house of prayer. The burnt offerings and sacrifices will be accepted on my altar. My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. Just before this passage in Luke's Gospel, we have Jesus coming into the city on the day that we call Palm Sunday. And as he comes into the city, he goes to the temple. But instead of finding a house of prayer, he finds a marketplace. The law had been interpreted that the only money you could use in the temple was temple currency. Now, this was the beginning of Passover. And pilgrims were coming from literally around the known world. And there were no AAA places where you could get the currency of the country you were going to visit. Of course, Roman coins would be good in most places, but not in the temple. And so you had to exchange your currency for the correct amount of temple coinage for a fee. You know, there's always that for a fee, because part of the earnings from the temple exchange went to the high priest. And the more they could charge you, the more he got. And then, of course, there was the whole idea of bringing sacrifices. Because the sacrifices had to be without blemish. And if you read some of the historians of the day, they will tell you that most of the time the animal you found would have a blemish and be unacceptable. But there was animals for sale that were acceptable. Or if you were traveling, why would you want to bring, whatever you needed for sacrifice with you when you could buy it at the temple? Makes perfect sense. Of course, that was a society in which everything was bartered. Have you ever been to a market where people are haggling and bartering over prices? Because you want the best deal, right? Now, the reason I'm wearing this is because we got it at the night market in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Now, Diane had been there for 6 months. And I came over and was there 3 or 4 weeks before she came back home, back in the mid-90s. And she took me to the night market. And I fell in love with this immediately. And I went back to the stall 3 or 4 times. And she dragged me away 3 or 4 times. Because I thought the price that the woman was asking was very reasonable. She wanted $15. I had given her 20. But Diane said no. And she wouldn't let me get it. And she took me home. And when we came back the next night, she told me, literally, to go in the corner and sit down and shut up. And the bartering began. And she got a good deal. Because I think you got a coat just like it thrown in, or close to it thrown in, for less than what she was asking. And they were both happy. I was happy. It cost me less money. The woman was happy. The mom, this is mom. It's not Aka or Lahu. It's mom. You know the tribes up there. But as I sat there and observed, the market was loud with the haggling and the bartering. Now throw into that there are animals there in the marketplace, in the temple in Jerusalem. And animals don't usually stay quiet, do they? You've got sheep, you've got cattle, you've got doves, you've got whatever it might be, and they're crowded, and people are bartering. Can you imagine the noise? And throw in, just for good measure, that every once in a while somebody comes by with a band because he's giving his offering and he wants to draw attention to himself. And we have those moments when we maybe snap. When we say enough is enough. How many times, parents, have you reached that point when all of a sudden enough is enough? And Jesus, we're told, takes a whip and begins to chase the money changers and the sacrifice sellers out of the temple. And he overturns the table. Now, what happens when you overturn tables full of coins? My house, Jesus said, shall be called a house of prayer. Mark adds the same verse that Isaiah does. My house shall be called a house of prayer for all people, everywhere. A place where you come and pray. A place where you come for quiet reflection and thanksgiving. But Jesus didn't find that in this temple of God. This temple that Solomon dedicated hundreds of years before and changed from a house of prayer into a marketplace. And this would be the most lucrative time of year for the high priest, because more people would be there than any other time. And the coffers would get fuller. Talk about upsetting the apple cart. Jesus says this needs to be a place of prayer. A place where people can come into my presence. And I thought about how so often we take things that are simple and make them complicated. Like prayer. But I want to get there the long way around. Bear with me for a couple of minutes. Monday night, I was at the Cascade Symphony Orchestra down in Edmonds. If you've never been down to one of their concerts, you should go. For a volunteer organization, their concerts are absolutely superb. And I looked at the instruments. And I began to think about it. Now, I can understand the drums, the percussion. Wasn't it Paul that brought a box one Sunday and you did the percussion with a box? You know, that makes sense. You know, we worship a creative God. If you haven't looked at a sunrise or a sunset, you've forgotten how creative God can be. But as I looked at the orchestra, and if you know how orchestras are set up, there is, over here, the violins and the violas, and over here are the cellos and the bass. And I began to ask, who had the idea that if I take a string and I tie it here, and I tie it here, and I put a box behind it, well, maybe I'll do 2 or 3 strings, or maybe 4 or 5. And they'll make a noise. You've got a guitar. But what if I take another piece of wood and put a different string on it, and move that back and forth like that, and it'll make music? Would you have thought of that? You know, our Wings kids come in with a little recorder. All of you, at one point in time, if you were schooled in this area, you get a recorder. 3rd, 4th, 3rd grade, 2nd, 3rd grade, 3rd grade. Okay. And you know, it's simple, little recorder. Because if you move behind the string section, you have the flutes and the clarinets. Okay. You thought about hollowing out a stick, right? And maybe drilling some holes in it. And then maybe finding a place to blow into it so that if you blew and covered some of the holes, it would sound okay. Oh, all of you came up with that, right? And then you go back another row, and you've got the French horns, and the trombones, and the tubas. Okay, now you're really at it because you say, well, if I take this piece of pipe and if I twist it like this and turn it like this, and if I add a valve or 2 here and a valve or 2 there and a place to blow into it, it's going to make music. Now let's forget about the piano or the harp or those ones. That was simple. Became complicated. And that's okay. Because complicated sounds good. The sound of a French horn is absolutely beautiful. If you've not heard one being soloed or whatever, it's a marvelous sound. Jimmy's flute. Guitars and other things. But have you ever heard them tuning up? Have you ever sat there as the orchestra tunes up? It's like a marketplace. You know, you don't want to be there because it's all going on in different... it can be terrible. But then when it comes together, and everybody gets in tune, and begins to lift and praise. Now, you guys practiced yesterday. I probably the first few times you had some ups and downs in what you were doing, right? Yeah. But when it came together this morning, it lifted us all. And I thought about prayer in that way. You know, we need those places of quiet. But we need things to come together. And we take things that are simple and make them complicated. We made prayer complicated. I know people who won't pray because they say, I don't know the right words. Somehow we made them think that there are special words that you only use in prayer. Or we're not capable because I'm not a priest or a deacon or an elder or whatever. I can't pray. Because only special people pray. Jesus said, my house shall be a house of prayer for all peoples. Because you see, there's no wrong way to pray. There are no wrong words to use. There are no wrong places to pray. Now, there are some places that maybe seem more appropriate to pray than others. Not necessarily all in buildings. You know, have you ever been sitting and watching a sunrise or a sunset and you're just filled with thanksgiving to God for the beauty of that moment? Or you put your arms around a newborn or someone you love. The temple was designed to be a place for people to come and pray. But it had turned into a marketplace. We visited a congregation. And it was one of those mornings when I really wanted to just be quiet for a few moments before worship and prayer. So we went in, and it was a congregation that had a beautiful pipe organ, and the organist was playing. And the couple behind me were discussing how bad their dinner was last night and how poor the service was at the restaurant they were at. And they weren't doing it quiet. I even know what they gave for a tip. And I wanted to turn around and tell them what Diane told me, go over in the corner and be quiet. Now, friends, sometimes this place sounds like a marketplace rather than a place of prayer. Together. I mean, honest. As Jesus came into the temple, he was looking for a place to pray. He was looking for a place in his last week of his life. He was looking for that place that Solomon dedicated, a place where it would be a house of prayer for all people. He didn't find what he came looking for. What would Jesus say to us? Would he be reminded of a marketplace? Or my house shall be a house of prayer for all people. Hear our prayers, O God. Help us to discover when we need the quiet. To know that all of us are able to say a simple prayer to you. It doesn't matter if we're young, if we're old, it doesn't matter whatever. It doesn't matter if we know the right words, it doesn't matter if we're in English to God, to Dine or whatever. You understand us. Thank you, O God. May we become in this place a place of prayer for all peoples. Amen. Change my heart.
Change my heart, oh God. Change my heart.
now from this place. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Pray one for another. Amen.